All right, Average Joes. So for today's episode of the AJP 101 exclusives, I'm actually just going to burn through the last 4 episodes. I'm in the process of moving back to Tompkinsville right now, which I'm very excited about. But what I want to do is get this content done, produced, and put out there so that I can focus on getting more guests lined up, as well as I'd like to maybe move into more, like if I continue these one-on-one episodes where it's just me, maybe moving into more counseling focused stuff to give like tips and coping skills and different theories and things like that may be helpful to listeners. And but overall, it's kind of been stressing me out trying to figure out how I'm going to get all of this done. And anytime I think about what if I just do kind of like a mega episode and get it out there, I feel better. So that's kind of my cue that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to talk about 4 things today. We're going to talk about a flow state. We're going to talk about the polyvagal theory. We're going to talk about the power of habits. And then we're going to talk about self-compassion. All right, so starting off with the flow state, it's the secret to peak performance, deep satisfaction, and accelerated learning. The common misconception is that you simply wait for this feeling to arrive. But as our quote says, flow isn't found, it's engineered. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to give you the blueprint for engineering it yourself. So what is flow? Psychologists call it the zone of optimal experience. It is that moment where you are so completely absorbed in an activity that everything else disappears. You lose track of time. Your actions feel effortless, as if you and the task are one. The key defining characteristic is that the activity itself becomes rewarding. It's intrinsically motivating. Think about a time you've been completely lost in a task. That's flow. It's about deep focus where action and awareness merge. If I think about this, like as a kid, probably Legos would have been like putting me in a flow state because I could do those from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, or even like stayed up beyond past my bedtime working on Legos because I just enjoyed them so much. So to engineer flow, you need to understand the 2 core pillars that create the psychological conditions. First, you must have a balance between challenge and skill. If the challenge is too high and your skill is too low, you get anxiety. If the challenge is too low and your skill is high, you get bored. Flow exists in that narrow channel where the challenge pushes the boundary of your current skill. The second pillar is immediate feedback. You must know instantly whether what you are doing is working or not. This allows your mind to constantly adjust and stay locked into the task without distraction. The actual engineering process involves intentionally setting up your environment. This means being crystal clear on your goals. No vague intentions. You need to enforce concentration by eliminating all potential distractions. Your phone, notifications, non-essential background music, they all have to go. You must also cultivate a feeling of control over the situation, trusting in your ability to handle the challenge. When these conditions are met, your intense focus can take over, and flow becomes not a lucky break, but a repeatable process. So to kind of test this out, as always with these, I give out a 7-day challenge. There will be a 7-day challenge for each of these that we cover today. So the roadmap that I've broken down for you today is day 1 is to simply identify one activity that you suspect puts you in flow. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm just saying think of one activity that you can completely lose yourself in, or you suspect you might get into the process of losing yourself in, even if you've never really truly experienced it. That's day 1, is just identifying that. Day 2, commit 15 minutes to it, but be strict. Put your phone in another room and commit to 0 distractions. Day 3, stretch that focus to 25 minutes. Consistency is key. And day 4, actively remove another distraction. Maybe it's your email tab or turning off the music you thought was helping. And day 5, this is the test. Push for 45 minutes or more of pure, uninterrupted flow. And then day 6, I want you to journal and reflect. What conditions made it easiest? What things got in the way? This helps you learn your personal blueprint. And day 7, finally teach what you've learned. Help one friend or follower trigger their own flow state. Practice mastery by teaching. So what I can speak of for my flow state, like I talked about Legos as kids could put me in a flow state, but what I can talk about as an adult, what I realize is if something is too challenging, that immediate feedback is consistently negative, or I just feel like I'm getting nowhere, that is what completely interrupts my flow state. Now, there's a difference between like interrupting my progress or this is a challenge and I'm just trying to figure out how to overcome it. It's like when it starts to feel like it's actively pushing against me, you know, there's a cognitive distortion going on there, and I'm going to have to back off of that, because chances are, you know, reality in and of itself is not pushing against you. It just feels that way. And if that's the case, you're taking on too much of a challenge. That doesn't mean back down, because there are times when you have to push through, but just for testing the flow state and understanding the flow state, if you're experiencing that, that's what I do not want you to experience. So find a balance between challenge and something that's not too easy, it's not too hard, but you feel that your skill is being applied, and then you're getting immediate feedback as to whether or not what you are doing is working. So that's how you test out your flow state. So remember, flow is a skill you cultivate through intentional practice. You don't stumble upon it. You design the environment, you commit the time, and the focus flows. By designing your environment, you design your focus. Don't wait for inspiration. Start the challenge today. Take control of your attention and unlock your peak performance. All right, now we're going to continue on, and we're going to move into the polyvagal theory. All right, polyvagal sounds like a weird word, but in school, if you've made it through high school and probably definitely into some college, you've most likely heard of like the vagus nerve. This is more about the nervous system in and of itself. So today we're going to talk about the polyvagal theory, a game changer in understanding stress, trauma, and connection. It's the framework that explains why you react the way you do and how to intentionally change it. Today's quote states, "Your nervous system runs the show. Learn the remote." We're giving you the keys to that remote today. Or I would be giving you the keys to that remote today. At its core, the polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, I'm going to mispronounce that, Porges, is the science of safety. It centers on the vagus nerve and how it constantly scans your world for signals of safety or danger. This process is called neuroception. It's your body's subconscious instant assessment of whether a person, place, or situation is safe. This unconscious feeling of safety or threat determines your entire state, dictating if you are open to connection or ready to defend. The theory maps out 3 autonomic states called the vagal ladder. At the top is the ventral vagal state, or the safe and social state. This is where we are calm, present, open to learning, and connected. Below that is the sympathetic state, the familiar fight or flight response, where we mobilize energy to defend ourselves. And at the bottom is the dorsal vagal state, the freeze or shutdown state. This is an ancient survival response involving collapse, dissociation, and feeling stuck or numb. So let's talk about learning the remote, self-regulation. The powerful takeaway is that we can intentionally shift our state. You can learn the remote. This involves self-regulation. Self-regulation techniques directly signal safety to the vagus nerve. Simply things like using your breath, a slow controlled breath like the 4-7-8 technique can instantly calm your system. Engaging sensory input through humming, singing, or using a little bit of cold water on your face can also stimulate the nerve and flip you back into that ventral vagal state. And never underestimate the power of co-regulation, finding a safe person to connect with through voice or presence to stabilize your system. So I can definitely testify to the cold water. And, I talk about putting cold water on your face, but depending on how stimulated I am, I will put cold water on my wrists, my neck, my face, my head. I just imagine like those old Tom and Jerry cartoons where someone was like mad or really upset and their face goes to like blood red, and there's like steam coming off. It's obviously not the same thing, but it works the same way to me in that if I can cool off when I'm feeling heated, that helps me to calm back down. And then also the co-regulation, finding someone that I can talk to that understands who I am, because they may need to understand that I can get overstimulated very easily. And if they don't know that and I'm coming to them and I'm overstimulated, it could be very overwhelming to them. But if they know who I am, they know what my triggers are, what me being overstimulated looks like, they're able to be there and be present and allow me to co-regulate, kind of bounce that ping pong, that energy off of them, and it eventually dissipates. So now we've translated this powerful science into an actionable roadmap, which is again our 7-day challenge. So day 1, simply start by noticing your state. Did you go into fight, flight, or freeze? Commit to using your breath the second you notice a reaction. So something I like to do, I talk about the 4, 7, 8, but something that I like to do is just take a deep breath and hold it and listen to my heartbeat, and I will start to hear it slow down, and then I'll breathe out, and then my heart rate let that breath go, and then my heartbeat will kind of pick back up again. That's to be expected, but I'll just I'll take a big deep breath in and hold it and let my heart rate slow back down, and then I'll breathe out. And I do that 3, 4, 5 times. If I start to feel lightheaded, I need to take a break in doing that. But what I'm doing is I'm slowing my heart rate down and I'm slowing my breathing down, which kind of works to force all the other autonomic systems to slow down as well. Experiment with biological hacks, like I talked about, splashing cold water or humming to flip the vagus nerve. And then day 4, another one you can do, and I don't like doing this because it's embarrassing. At least it's not embarrassing. It feels embarrassing. If I saw someone doing this in public, I would be proud of them. I wouldn't laugh at them for doing it. It's just hard for me to do. But it's forcing myself to smile. Like if I force myself to smile when I'm upset, like I start to get that feeling like, come on, dude, you need to calm down. And that's not what embarrasses me. It's just randomly smiling out of nowhere in public. That I worry about what people think about that, but that's neither here nor there right now. It's not what matters, but it does work. All right. Practice. Day 4 is to practice co-regulation. So seek out that safe person that you can bounce off of, that you can kind of take that overstimulated energy, not take it out on them. We're not talking about taking it out on them, but being able to have them there while you vent and help you to kind of process and work through. They're not there to challenge you. They're not there to push back necessarily. They're there to just give you a safe, structured, it's like a structure with a different person, with another person, through another person, and being able to process and work through these issues. All right. Day 5, introduce the 60-second physiological sigh, an incredibly fast way to calm the system when stressed. I'm going to chalk that up to being more like what I do, where I take, you could do what I do as well, like holding my breath, taking a big deep breath and holding it in and I usually hold it for a little bit longer than what I'm doing right there. That's just more for demonstrating purposes. But I'm listening for my heart rate and waiting for it to slow down, and then I'm breathing out. Day 6, intentionally look for and create moments of ventral vagal safety 3 times today. Don't go and overstimulate yourself, but create moments in which you can practice those things that we've talked about. And then day 7, become the model. Be the calm presence for someone else, cementing your mastery. So if you work around other people, you're going to see them upset, and you're kind of like, if you internalize what we talk about today, you might be able to, like, to yourself, like, what would you be recommending that they do? in this situation to calm down. And if you've internalized what we've talked about so far today, you're going to be able to pass that on to them and help them to calm down. Now, if someone's upset, don't just give them unsolicited advice about calming down, because that could invalidate how they feel. But if they're a friend, they're someone you trust, or they trust you, or they ask for support, then you can kind of slowly step in a little bit to the degree that you're comfortable and it's reasonable to do so. All right, so moving on, we're going to talk about the power of habits. We're going to talk about unlocking the quiet secret behind all long-term success, the power of habits. We often overestimate the event and underestimate the power of the daily action. But as the quote today says, the goal is small changes, massive results. So over the next few minutes, I'll give you the exact formula to build any habit you want and make it stick. At its core, a habit is simply an automatic response to a cue. Researchers found that all habits, good or bad, follow a three-part neurological pattern called the habit loop. It starts with the cue. The trigger tells your brain to run the program. Then the routine, the actual behavior you perform, and finally the reward, the benefit you get that satisfies your craving and makes the brain remember the loop for the next time. If you want to change a habit, you must first understand this loop. The biggest mistake people make is starting too big. They try to do an hour at the gym on day one. The key, as taught by the Tiny Habits methodology, is to focus on consistency, not intensity. Your habit must be so small that it is ridiculous to say no. A tiny habit builds identity. It sends a signal to your brain that I'm the kind of person who does this habit. Don't try to change your life in a day. Try to change your identity through small, repeatable actions. The practical application of the habit loop is a two-step formula. First, leverage what you already do with habit stacking. This means you anchor your new tiny habit to an existing one. After I, finish my coffee, I will do 5 push-ups. The existing habit is your perfect cue. Second, you must deliver an immediate reward. Right after you perform the new habit, give yourself a small positive feeling. A smile, a mental, I did that, or a quick stretch. This makes the habit satisfying and locks the behavior into your brain for the long run. All right, so it's a short one, so we're at the 7-day challenge. So day 1, I want you to pick one tiny habit that you can do in under 2 minutes. Don't get ambitious. Use the habit. Day 2, use the habit stacking rule. Find an existing cue to anchor it to. Day 3, add an immediate tiny reward. This is crucial for satisfaction. Day 4, simply repeat the loop, same cue, same reward. Day 5, start to increase the satisfaction. Make the reward slightly bigger or more fun. Day 6, the crucial rule, never miss twice. If you miss on purpose, do a tiny version anyway. And day 7, share your success. Help one person start their own tiny habit, cementing your own mastery over the process. So when it talks about on day 6, the never miss twice, if you miss on purpose, do a tiny version anyway. So I like to think of this like the days when I do like intermittent fasting, which I'm not a physical specimen to represent intermittent fasting by any means. So, but the days that I do, and I shouldn't say that because that's tearing myself down. I shouldn't say that. But intermittent fasting, usually it's, from 8 p.m. till 12 p.m. the next day, you fast, and then you can eat from, 12 to 8 or whatever. I've already forgotten. Anyway, if you're trying to push out the time that you fast, let's say you don't want to eat, say normally you can start eating at 12, but you want to push it out till, something a lot longer, like 5 p.m. And you make it and you can't, like in your mind, you just can't make it. Like something's going to like you're going to have to eat, and you're going to have to intentionally miss that 5. Well, push it out to what's the longest you think you commit to? 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, commit to that, make it to that. That's an intentional miss. You didn't make it to 5 o'clock, but you still had intention behind when you broke that habit, if that makes sense. Remember, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. You won't see results in a day, but the consistency of 1% improvements every day leads to massive, even exponential growth over a year. The most effective people are not the most motivated. They are the people who have the best systems. Stop chasing motivation. Design your system with a 7-day challenge and take control of your long-term success. All right, and the last one that we're going to talk about today is self-compassion. Most of us are incredible at offering kindness to others, but turn into our harshest critics when it comes to ourselves. I just did this when I was talking about not being a specimen for intermittent fasting. But our quote says, talk to yourself like someone you love. Today I'm going to show you how to start that conversation. What exactly is self-compassion? It's simply taking a kind, non-judgmental stance toward yourself in moments of suffering, failure, or inadequacy. It is a fundamental misunderstanding to think this is self-pity or letting yourself off the hook. In fact, it is the exact opposite. It's about facing your difficulties with honesty and warmth, replacing the shame-based energy of the inner critic with the supportive energy of a coach or a true friend. This act of self-acceptance is the key to true, lasting motivation. Researchers have broken self-compassion into 3 core interlocking components. The first is self-kindness, which is actively choosing to be supportive rather than critical when you struggle. The second is common humanity, the recognition that to be human is to be imperfect. Your suffering is not yours alone. It connects you to every other person. And finally, mindfulness, which is the ability to hold your pain in balanced awareness, seeing it clearly without getting consumed by it or pushing it away. These 3 components form a powerful foundation for emotional resilience. The great news is that you can immediately begin to learn the practical steps to shift your inner state. This involves actively engaging in compassionate self-talk, literally changing the language you use when you make a mistake. Try engaging in physical touch. A hand on your chest or a simple hug can physiologically calm your nervous system and signal safety. The simplest tool is to learn to take the pause, to stop for a moment when something difficult happens and choose kindness over your habitual reaction of self-criticism. These are small actions that create massive internal change. All right, and now for today's last 7-day challenge, and this one is again for self-compassion. Day 1, simply write down one harsh self-thought you had today and get it out of your head. Day 2, take that thought and reframe it exactly as you would for a close friend. Day 3, commit to saying the kind version out loud while looking in the mirror. Day 4, practice the most powerful technique. Put a hand on your chest and say, this is hard, and that's okay. And sometimes I feel like this stuff is a little cheesy. I don't like it, but I'm going to do this as a good example. This is hard because it feels cheesy, but that's okay because there's good purpose in what we're doing. All right. Day 5, when you mess up, because you will, immediately name 3 things that you are doing right instead of beating yourself up. So I beat myself up for talking about the intermittent fasting thing. You know, I'm still continuing on with today's episode. I woke up this morning and I ran, and I've still committed to my fasting for the day. So that's my 3 things. I'm still doing just fine. All right. Day 6, do one small act of self-care without any guilt. You deserve it. So one small act of self-care. It can be just something in some small way, large, it doesn't matter. Just do something nice for yourself on day 6 to reward your efforts for days 1 through 5. And then day 7, finally write yourself a short, compassionate note and share this positive vibe with the world. Remember, self-compassion is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is the core of true inner strength and resilience. Stop waiting for external validation or chasing an impossible level of perfection. Start the challenge today. Unlock your capacity for unconditional self-support and discover the true power of kindness. All right, so that wraps up the AJP 101 exclusives, at least for the series that I had in store when I first come up with the idea to do these. If you think the one-on-one episodes are good or like they need to continue, let me know in the comments. I will put out a poll as well, because I want to put out good content, and I want to put out content that I want to put out for sure, but I don't want to, if I'm doing this content every other week, but it's not something that people are interested in, I'm not above doing something completely different or just changing the schedule outright. I just want to know kind of what you guys think. But for right now, that's all I got. Again, I'm moving to Tompkinsville. I have the next few weeks content lined up, and this will be on it. By the time you're watching this, I will have already moved to Tompkinsville, and we'll be hopefully have a new kind of system or schedule, or just a solidified system or schedule, and we can keep this thing rocking. All right, I love you guys. God bless you, and take care.